You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
We're asking the tough questions like, who is Jack Crusher? Can Data's good side beat Lore? And is Captain Shaw sexier when he's been beat up? It's Monday night at 7 p.m. You're with us, and that can only mean it's time for Mission Log Live. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Holly Amos. Tonight, does the word Dominion sound familiar? Like the whole war that happened years ago? Well, it should, because it's the name of tonight's episode of Star Trek Picard, and we are here, as we are each week, to chat with you and to try to connect the dots. As always, you are part of the show in the Facebook chat and live on the air with us. And you know what to do. You click on the Zoom link, or you can give us a ring using the one tap from your smartphone, or you can call us at 669-900-6833 and enter the meeting code and password you see in the show notes.
So, as we are all waiting for you to do your thing and line up in the Earl Green Room, let's see who's in the chat with us tonight. By the way, we have to start out right away, right at the top. First one in the chat, as he is often, Bob Amos. Let's see, you recognize the last name. It's Holly's dad. And I've been told that there's a birthday tomorrow.
Yes, there is.
All right. Well, happy birthday. Yay! Not even a day early, just a few hours early. So happy birthday to be Bob.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Good to have you with us.
He was born near Boston, so he's like,
so he's already
2 hours. Yeah,
like super close.
Yeah, super close.
Are you doing anything tomorrow to celebrate with him?
I will call him as always.
Yes.
I believe I'm going out to see my parents this weekend because I don't have anything happening on Easter.
Excellent. All right. Very good. So happy birthday to Bob. I love two Pauls back to back, just right away, chatting. And then third Paul joined a little bit later. Very glad to see that. There's Alan, there's James, there's Brett. There is, let's see, Jason. Oh, I love Scott Palm here asking, are the Pauls meaty changelings? Could be, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see if that changeling detector is working correctly. There's Jane. Let's see here. There's Dave. Maybe we'll have another Dave join us a little bit. There's Mark. Let's see. There's Dominic. How are you, Dom? Good to see you, my friend. Let's see who else we got. John Arminio. Glad to see him. Greetings, changelings and solids alike, he says. So that's very cool. John Kirk. Carlos, glad to see you on BC with the Ala Moraine, of course.
Ala Moraine. Oh,
every time.
Yeah.
Every time. But a lot of happy birthday Bobs in there. Very glad to see that. So welcome one and all. And just a little bit of business to catch up about here on what's happening in Mission Log world before we get to our recap and the show tonight. So this week on regular Mission Log on Thursday, our coverage of Voyager continues with Macrocosm. Holly, you and I, when we see each other in the office, I'll like tell you, hey, we're recording this today, and then usually have like a hilarious look on your face of recognition, like,
it depends on which episode. It
depends. Any quick thoughts about Macrocosm? Like, are you in favor of Janeway fighting a giant virus with a knife in a corridor?
Sure. I mean, I feel like I feel neutral about that episode. Like, It's not terrible, but it's not one of my favorites. But we do get a pretty awesome Janeway situation out of it.
Yeah, very true. We do. So I'm all in favor of that. By the way, Bob asked what happened to your background, John. Bob, I am not in the office. I am not in LA. I am back home visiting my parents for a myriad of reasons. So I'll be here for the next few weeks and then, back to work.
But we both have a little gallery wall.
We do.
Even though I'm in a fake setup.
I'm in a real setup. Some of my dad's fly tying work behind. And then I'm over there maybe like 20 plus years ago fishing in New Mexico. So there's like all kinds of cool stuff to show off in here. But that's not why we're here. Some other time I'll do the tour, I promise. But anyway, so Macrocosm this week. And of course, if you're a member of our Patreon and therefore a member of our Discord, love for you to join us for our live chat on Discord Thursday afternoons when we talk about that week's episode. So we'll talk Patreon a little later, of course, you know that. Mission Log The Orville and Mission Log Prodigy, both of those shows are available as podcasts and as videocasts. So if you'd like to catch up on those, like most recently Prodigy, we did a review of Supernova, the novel by Rob Perlman, friend of the show. Shout out to Rob. So just go to podcast.roddenberry.com roddenberry.com. Click on the show of your choice. You can find every audio feed there. And then you can also find the YouTube channel for each show there. That's at youtube.com/Roddenberry Entertainment. And I always say, if you don't see the platform that you prefer, let us know, because we'll add it. We'll make sure that we're there. So,
and it'd have to be a really new platform. I feel like we're on everything.
I feel like we're on everything, but some shows come and go. Like Mission Log's been around a long time. I feel like it's sort of been fed out everywhere, but some of it, like Orville and Prodigy, a little bit newer, and maybe we overlooked something. So let us know. Happy to add it for you, but you can find them all listed right now at podcast.roddenberry.com. And you said the magic word, Holly, Dominion, at the top of the show. So I know who knew they'd be back, but here we go. All right. Recap of this week's episode of Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 7, Dominion. In hiding, the crew of the Titan reach out to anyone who might be able to help them get to the bottom of their changing infiltration problem with Starfleet. Take, for example, Seven's old friend Tuvok, who seems super helpful on a monitor, but surprise, he's a changeling too. And when he's found out, he tells Seven, Picard, and the rest of them that they will wish for death when the changelings are done with them. Moving on. With hours to go until Frontier Day ceremonies, Dr. Crusher weighs out the moral implications of a weapon, or at least a tool, that can zero in on changelings. That brings us to the question of why the changelings would want Picard's and/or Jack's body. Maybe it's to pass a DNA test at Frontier Day? Data Lord B4 Sung, that's my new name for him, might have some answers. Problem with that guy is you never know who you're going to get. He's literally, mentally split with a war for dominance going on between the Data and Lore personalities. A few insults come flying out of his mouth, along with some indication that the secret to Picard's uniqueness is that his Ironic syndrome was a misdiagnosis. Lore keeps peeking out, though, and for safety, Data Lore B4 Sung is shut down before he can get too out of hand. Geordi might have to separate the personalities, but that's delicate work, and he dare not rush the process, or they could lose the data partition forever. Back on the Shrike, Vadic is being threatened by her creepy morphing handling boss hand guy. She needs to find Jack pronto and needs to do it by whatever means are necessary, or he'll rip her apart, literally. Where is Jack? He's on the Titan in a turbolift with Sidney LaForge, and he's using some telepathic power to flirt with her. Okay, hold that thought for later, I guess, because an incoming signal from the Shrike, and very likely Riker, is pinging the Titan. Jack tosses out the radical idea that his old man, that maybe he could offer himself up in exchange for Riker. Picard says absolutely not, but what if they have an advantage here? Which seems to be a plan that looks like this. Play dead in the water, lure the Shrike there, and what do you know, Vadic can't resist the bait. She and a handful of goons take a shuttle over to the Titan, but it's a trap. There's running and shooting until they're all trapped behind force fields, including Jack and Sidney, who are being used as bait, but they can't be beamed out. Something is blocking Geordi from working transporter magic, and that something is Lore, now up and about on his own, no longer able to be switched off like a lamp. While we're figuring out whatever the hell he's up to, Picard and Beverly have a chance to interrogate Vadic. Her story is interesting. During the Dominion War, she was a POW at Daystrom along with 9 other changelings. She was experimented upon, tortured, and in the process, the new abilities like passing for human evolved. She passed it along to others, and eventually they broke free after Vadic killed and took the form of the scientist who experimented on her. Picard claims ignorance to what happened there, and Vadic remarks what a lack of empathy humans seem to have. After that emotional moment, it's time for one more. Sorry, I lied. It's time for 2 more. Picard and Crusher realize that they are compromising their values by holding Vadic prisoner. So what should they do? Geordi pleads with the data partition to give him control of the Titan systems so he can beam their people out. Too bad that doesn't work. Lore starts selectively dropping the force fields, allowing Vadic to escape and leaving Sydney and Jack to fight off 2 more goons. Jack gives an assist psychically to allow Sydney to defeat her goon, and at the last second, Data takes over Lore to open up the doors and drop the remaining fields. As Vadic scoops up one of her goons, Picard and Crusher have a lead on one of the trace elements used in the Changeling experiments on Daystrom. At least they can track them across the ship. Weapons are fired, but it's no use. Soon, Vadic and many more Changelings make their way to the bridge, killing or disarming anyone in their way. Once the bridge is taken, Vadic opens a channel. Titan is hers now, and it's time for Jack Crusher to learn who he really is. Next week, maybe. The end. All right, Holly. There's our mystery. Our mystery
Picard.
is
Picard really messed things up.
Yeah, he really.
I think we know how we can get Vadic. Oh well, now she took over the ship.
Yeah, well, exactly. And is she? Do you think she's just going to like announce what Jack's? Because like we could solve a lot of issues if she just got on the horn and just said,
Yeah.
"Here's the deal with Jack. Here's why we want him." You know,
I don't. The reason. Well, first of all, from a storytelling standpoint, no. But she also said when she first meets him in the corridor when they first get on board that it would be more interesting to show him than to tell him. And I think she probably feels that way about everybody else finding out why. I don't know. What is he? You and I made the same note that the glowing red eye is very Pa-Wraith.
Yeah, is it a pirate thing? And I forgot who in our Twitter community posted a screen grab where it's Jake and Goldacott.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Jake from The Reckoning.
Yeah, and Jack all next to each other. So,
yeah, I mean, it's very reminiscent of a Pa-Wraith possession.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't.
Yes.
I fundamentally don't understand the telepathy situation, and I think this could be an interesting conversation. Do you remember a couple of years ago when I think we were at the Scots Festival, and I asked you if you had an internal dialogue?
Oh, yeah, I remember this conversation. Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
So for those who were not there, which is everybody.
Well, except for a bunch of Scottish people who were drinking scotch. But yes, go ahead.
So during, like right before the pandemic and then through the pandemic, there was an interesting conversation that happened on Twitter where people became aware that there were other thought processes. Some people have an internal dialogue and some people don't. And it ended up there were all of these articles about it. And then I think they did a study in the UK about it. I don't have an internal dialogue. I see words, I see pictures, I see stuff moving around in my head, but I don't speak to myself in full sentences. And I was like, what if like I was Sydney and Jack was trying to read my like the telepathy thing I don't think would work with me.
It may not. He would just have to do it with pictograms and just single words. So what she kind of did is something like roll, do fire,
right?
Run.
But that's a different thing too. Like even the telepathy of them having that awkward. Why is flirting on Star Trek always awkward as hell?
I did not. I hope that there's a good reason for that. I hope there was a good
carrying on the LaForge family awkwardness. I guess.
Which, by the way, really glad to see it here in the chat. Paul. One of our Pauls, Paul Wright, responding to Brett saying, I really hate how TNG did Geordi, made him all awkward around women. He's my favorite character. And it's good to see a mature Geordi who has a bit more agency. I have maybe very slightly mixed feelings about his impassioned speech to Data /Lore/Soong /etc.
No, I lost it. I was crying.
Did you? Okay. Yeah. You see, I thought it was dramatic. I thought it was handled beautifully. I mean, you don't get much better than an actor like LeVar Burton, no matter what. Maybe it was just, I don't know. We've had so little of Geordi in the series so far, and you have to cram a lot in. You have to establish who he is. where his loyalties are, how he's resistant. Then you have to break down the resistance, and you have to get him back on board to be part of the team. Then you have to have him emotionally open up to Data. And like, if you add up all the Geordi time that we've had, it's maybe like 15 minutes, you know? So I found myself kind of going in and out of my commitment to that scene. No slight against the performances at all, because he's freaking great. I think it's just my own kind of barrier there with that.
Well, I mean, being a Data girl, I was like, oh,
well, sure.
That's what I would say to Data. Your death destroyed me.
Oh. Yes.
Yeah, but the whole like Jack thing also, like, it's not just the telepathy. It's like he basically like avatared her.
Yeah. I there's a lot to learn.
I don't know. I don't know what he is, and I'm like very excited to find out.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to our first callers. We've got a handful of people lined up tonight. So hold on. We will get to everybody. Chris, Brandon, Paul, Alan, John, and Tim. So stick around. But Chris, let's bring you in, and you tell us what's on your mind tonight. Friend, what's up?
Hey, doing good. I will say, and this may or may not be a hot take, we'll see when I say it, the Jack Sydney mirror match thing is honestly maybe my favorite sequence of this year so far. Not only because I really like the mirror match gimmick, but I think it's a really good illustration of just like a nice, tight little mini story, because you go from being afraid that Sydney's going to die to being excited that she's not going to die with the gimmick. And then at the very end, you get her kind of like, wait, what happened? Like the way she's like, wait, hold on, hang on, pause. You know, just the way she like processes it. She's like, oh, maybe do I still like you? Was this like, did I consent to this? Like,
right.
It's a very interesting sequence. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And I just like, it's one of those weird things to introduce kind of late into the series. And I get it, like there are all these layers that we are revealing about Jack, but we've spent a lot of time with him with the red eyes and the creepy growing vines and him discovering his own strengths. But like that seems like a very specific thing, is that I can just jump into somebody else's mind.
If it has nothing to do with power race, they should have picked something other than glowing red eyes, which is genuine, like not just in Star Trek, but that's a little bit of a trope, right?
Yeah. Totally.
But the telepathy thing was never really like that's why I'm confused, which is good. Like I don't think that we've figured it out.
By the way, here's a dumb question that I had to myself while I was watching the episode. In that scene, it's either right before or right after he's looking at Sydney, and she says something like, "Why are you looking at me that way?"
Yeah.
And we as the audience see the glowing red eyes. My question was always, what is the mechanism of glowing red eyes in a person who just has eyes? Okay, whether you're Cardassian or human or whatever. And B, does the other person in the scene see those red glowing eyes? Because to me, that would just be like, you just kill all the lights where you are, look for the red eyes and aim that way.
Right.
I feel like the answer is on DS9, yes, here, no. Like,
okay.
To me, on here, it seems like the red eyes are mainly a thing for us to know that he's kind of like in the dream state.
Yeah.
Well, Sydney had red eyes at some point too when they were connected.
Oh, did they? I didn't catch that. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sydney's eyes glowed red, either, I think, right after the Avatar situation where he basically controlled her. And she's on the floor or something and she's getting up. I'd have to rewatch it, but her eyes are red at some point too.
Interesting. Scott Palm saying Jack is not human.
Well, no, and there's so many different things that Vatic has said, right? Like, he's not for me, and then later she's like, he's not for you either. And Beverly is like, what the hell does that mean? And I'm like, I have the same question.
Right.
But it might also explain, this is weird, but I was like, when we first learned of Jack's existence, I was like, how old would that have made Beverly? Like,
a lot of questions I had there. Yeah.
So did she have a miracle pregnancy at that age because he was like implanted or something, but that still would have had to be
like it is the future.
She still had relations with Picard. They would have had to rely on that actually happening so that neither Picard or Beverly were suspicious about like her having this like Jesus pregnancy. Like, you know, I don't.
Right. Yeah.
I want to see how this. Yeah.
This is hilarious. In the chat, Jane says Sydney's eyes were glowing red when they were playing the mall arcade game. I just love it. It's the mall arcade game. Nicely said. And Paul Wright saying, well, it is the 25th century. So yeah, I mean, look, and I always pointed out in the 24th century episodes, you can do cool stuff like, great plastic surgery with no problem. So there are many things that could account for that. Carlos saying Beverly is a changeling. I don't know.
You're a changeling. Stick around.
Everybody's a changeling. We got 3 episodes to bring this home. Chris, any other thoughts tonight before we go to our next caller?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer to this, but something I noticed that was interesting is that Geordi's, impassioned speech to Data is the way the episode is cut. It's juxtaposed with Bev and Picard's like contemplation of gunning Vadic down. I was like, am I supposed to read into this? I feel like I'm supposed to maybe read something, but I don't know what. I was like, this is an interesting.
They've been doing that a lot though, because one of the previous episodes, they had Picard and when he was talking to Geordi interspliced with something else, and it felt very cinematic to me. So I want to think that this is just how they're choosing to present it. I don't know if we should be reading into it more.
Yeah, that is a good question. I don't know. I think it, like my gut tells me it is a creative, dramatic editing choice. Yeah. But if there is a textual reason for this, I'd be very interested to know.
Yeah, I would be too, because it's certainly not the first time that they've edited that way.
Yeah, because to me, just real quickly, because I know we got people, my thing was like, oh, it's Geordi doing like the good, right thing, and Bevan Picard not wanting to.
Well, it's certainly a good juxtaposition,
That was my like initial impulse, which I don't know if means anything, but that was,
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it. We will see you again soon. By the way, just have to go through some more of these chat comments because they're killing me. Jane saying maybe it was immaculate candleception.
I hate everything about that.
Brandon saying the Titan is a changeling. And welcome here to David. Other David showed up. Not that David. The other David showed up. And he says, wasn't Nemesis 21 years ago? It's so weird. I'm fairly certain Jack is older than 21. Yes, to me, he plays about 28, 30, somewhere around there. So he was born, and then they did Insurrection and Nemesis. So yeah, it doesn't play totally right for me, David. I absolutely get that. Brett says, reply to Dave Taylor, we don't talk about that. Oh, shoot. I can't see what he was replying to, but that's too bad. Welcome, Captain Mike. Welcome, Heather. And let's see here. Oh, and Mike saying that the actor is like 34. See, that plays much more real to me. Yeah. Okay, they're playing fast and loose there. But again, it's the 25th century. Good, yeah. Could be anything. All right, let's go to our next caller. Brandon has been standing by, as he is wont to do in the Cerritos. How you doing tonight, Brandon?
Hey, guys, I'm doing okay. Before I get to my main point, Holly, John, I was actually just wrapping up my annual security training for work, and I was hoping you could help me with a question here. You find a phone, an Android, with a label that says it contains unstable and dangerous code. Where do you plug it in? A, the central mainframe that contains all the important information and controls everything, even down to the very elevators. Or B, literally anywhere else, including nowhere at all. And I'm just stuck.
Yeah. This, I'm so glad that we have a security professional here. And as you know, Holly and I are both security professionals as well. So you came to the right place. Yeah,
Listen, in Geordi's defense, the security officer on the Enterprise was Worf, and he's not there.
It's true.
So there's no way to make this call at all. He just, yeah. If only they had Worf. Yeah, what you want to do is make sure that your most precious and important systems that literally drive the whole mission are the ones that are connected.
I mean, I was yelling like, just unplug him. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, the whole idea is interesting anyway, because they keep making a point of saying, well, this isn't Data, it isn't Lore, it isn't B4, it isn't Sung. It's this golem that is something else. It's more
amalgamation.
Yeah, more human, but he's still got a kill switch. He said, because they woke him the one time, and Geordi was very clear about like, yeah, we've only turned on the brain and the mouth.
Cognitive function.
Yeah. He can't like walk around or slap you or anything. And then when we're done with him, just turn him off. So that just seems really weird. Mark in the chat says the golem has Bluetooth. So very, very convenient there. Yeah. And Jason says the new model should have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth too. Yeah. Oh, and Brett mentioning Lal. They mentioned Lal the very first time when they were in Daystrom.
Yeah.
But then they just stopped talking about Lal. And it's like, oh my gosh, this may be Data or it may be Lore. I would think Sung would have a lot to say about this as well. And maybe before. And Lal is just totally an afterthought at this point. Yeah. I don't know. All right, Brandon, what do you got for us tonight, other than your pressing security?
The main
question?
point.
Yeah.
Well, I'll find some answer to that somewhere. There was something with the substance of this episode that, shall we say, elicited an emotional response. So we learned in this episode that Starfleet didn't just engineer a bioweapon to fight the Dominion. And we could be like, okay, well, they scanned them and they figured out whatever, and then they just did the thing. And that's really bad, but they didn't just do that. Now we find out that they tortured sentient life, prisoners of war, which probably we have the Geneva Convention Plus here, but we're going to violate that, to create super soldiers, because I guess they've never watched a Marvel movie or, I don't know, Star Trek, to learn that creating super soldiers or super spies is a bad idea.
Right.
It's not just that it's a bad idea. This is Starfleet during the DS9 era, not the new fallen, edgy Starfleet. It was meticulous, methodical torment decades ago. So Picard started off season 1 telling us Starfleet isn't what it once was. And now as we're approaching the end, it's telling us, well, actually, it is, because it was never what you thought it was. No. Some parts were evil the whole time. Humanity has always been rotten and will always be rotten. Oof. And that makes me so mad coming from a Star Trek show, because it's dragging down all of the other stories that have already been told by being like, yeah, that's all, like, underneath all of that, though. This has always been festering. And
it should. Yeah. Go ahead, Holly.
It's specifically Section 31, which has always been a little bit of a seedy story portion of Starfleet. What made me a little bit more angry even than just all of that was the fact that, according to Vadic, they came up with, they had the cure, and then as far as Picard and Beverly knew, that it was sent into the Great Link, and she's like, no, it wasn't. We had to steal it from you. The fact that was like created and then withheld is kind of the worst thing that I've ever heard.
I thought that Odo was the cure because he merged with like a baby changeling. So I got really confused with what Vadic said, which is like, we stole it from you. And I was like, hold up a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I'm sure we're going to learn more about that, but can we talk a little bit more about Vadic, though? Because she's kind of one of my favorite versions of a quote unquote villain. I don't think she's a villain. She's like Khan. She's an antagonist. She's not wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, she's not like, am I kind of rooting for her?
Well, I think, look, this is what makes a character like that and a motivation like this interesting and mean something other than just I'm a mustache twirling villain.
Right.
I'm glad that the problems with the Dominion War have repercussions and they are being revisited. I think this is a really smart and meaningful way to do that. Brandon, I cannot agree with you more. And it's funny because this is a conversation that in bits and pieces we've been having sort of privately. So, when Norman and I talk or that Earl chimes in our Slack or whatever, it's like, oh, is this what we're doing again? Where it's not just that the problems, like people can be imperfect, but the problems that imperfect people bring to an institution like Starfleet or the Federation are so gross and so pervasive that we are constantly it's not even just a state of vigilance anymore. It's a state of warfare about that. And I think that story is interesting to tell every now and then when that is the point of the story, is that we need to be vigilant and we need to make sure that we are constantly making the institutions that are about humanity strive towards something more perfect, strive towards something better than our worst impulses and our worst desires. But when that story becomes the only story that we're telling over and over and over and over again, I need to take a break from it. I need something fresh and new. I have had many an argument with people. And look, this is not in any way to sort of trash this season or this episode or new directions to Star Trek at all. Has nothing to do with that. I do want to share a conversation, though, that I have had more than a few times when various people have said, oh, well, in Star Trek, you have to have the villain who does this. And I keep thinking, well, but in Star Trek 4, which was the most popular movie up to that time, the villain was a misunderstood space probe that we needed to talk to, So it's not just like Batman has to have the Joker. That's we can have those stories in Star Trek, absolutely. We can also have other stories too,
like Darmok.
Yes, absolutely. And and that's what I really liked about the last season of Discovery was, you may have mixed feelings about how we got there or what the stories were like, but having that beautiful moment of communication at the end, I thought really made it worth it. By the way, I don't want this moment to go by the way, because Dominic asked earlier in the chat, is that a pencil sharpener behind you? Yes, it is. And it is manual. It is not a battery-powered pencil sharpener. So thanks again to my dad in his study. So there we go. It's going back. All right. Brandon, any other thoughts before we move along?
Just to, point back again to our actual mustache twirling villain, she whistled while she tortured things.
Yeah.
I forgot to add that part. And then, we've just got a few episodes left. I think three episodes left. And I look forward to whichever episode it is that has the first time that one of Picard's plans work. The poor guy cannot catch a break, can't win for losing. No. But I'm looking forward to it. And thanks for your time, guys. Thanks for letting me experience my emotional event.
Oh, pleasure to see you, Brandon. Take care.
Good to see you.
Till next time, okay?
Bye-bye.
It is the bottom of the hour, so we have a little bit of business to take care of, but I do want to acknowledge that we have Paul, Alan, John Arminio, and Tim standing by. We will get to all of you, of course. Thank you again. And Earl said this in the chat, which I love, when we were talking about missing Lal from the mix of this new Gollum. And Earl said it's a combination of Lal and Spot. Lolcat. Mm-hmm. That's our Earl. That is why he's here. Sorry, Dom, that you lost a bet. I'll make it up to you sometime. All right, let us talk very quickly. Oh, I left the bottles in the other room. I should have brought them in here as props, but you know what time it's for. It's time to talk about Star Trek wines. And, I'm not even going to look at the notes because I'm going to tell you what you already know, which is that Star Trek wines are delicious. And they have gone the extra trouble of sourcing Chateau Picard from the actual Chateau Picard, which I think is too cool, because they could have just filled up those beautiful bottles with anything and said, look, it's Star Trek and it looks cool, and we would have bought it. But no. They went the extra mile and they filled these bottles with something wonderful. And it's not just the Chateau Picard, which is great. I absolutely love that. To me, the unsung hero is the Federation Reserve Old Vine Zinfandel, which I would drink morning to night. It is wonderful. It's so light and wonderful as a red. I love the Ricin bottles. You just saw those in my office the other day, Holly.
Yeah.
You were admiring the Ricin bottles. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very pretty.
They are indeed. And then the Klingon blood wine, not made with actual blood, but very good. It is a Cabernet, and it has a peppery, spicy finish to it. It, as one would expect, goes very well with rich and spicy foods. Try that on your next charcuterie. What I'm saying is there is something there for everyone. And if you go to StarTrekWines.com, here's the trick. Okay. You add stuff to your cart, you pick out the wine that you want, and then you grab the Federation medallion. That thing is metal and it's about yay big, and you can stick it on, a mug or a bowl or whatever else and kind of shape it into place. When you add it to your cart and then you use the checkout code Roddenberry, the price of that just disappears. You get that for free. So if you want that beautiful medallion, it's actually on one of the bottles, but it was so popular they figured, we should be selling this separately. And now you can get it for free by using our checkout code Roddenberry. And browse the site. You can get special packages. You can get the full Armada, which is every wine that they make. You get the Chateau Picard set, which I love, where you get the 22, 21, 2386, and 2401 bottles. And remember, these are the ones you see on screen. So they worked with the prop masters to get those originals. Then they manufacture them. Then those are the bottles that go back on set. So when you see them using those on screen on the show, those are the bottles that you're getting. StarTrekWines.com. Remember to use our checkout code Roddenberry to get the medallion for free. Now, Holly, you're having a beer tonight, but
I am having a beer.
Yeah,
but it's sort of Klingon. It's blood orange.
Oh,
it's a blood orange Hefeweizen from California.
Nice.
But I
have it in that awesome
very
Star
fancy
Trek
Star
mug.
Trek cup. Yeah.
I love that. I love that thing. All right. Well, let us move on to our next caller, and that is Paul. Paul, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, but how do you know I'm not Alan?
See, you could just be a neat milkshake wearing a hoodie and sitting in front of a teddy.
I could be Alan, but then you'd ask me to sing and you'd know it's Paul. So
that's very true. Yeah.
Let's see. Morals, meanings, and messages. Holly, I agree with you. I think Vadic is becoming someone I'm really having different feelings about. I mean, amazing. And it comes down to a couple quotes. And the one that just gutted me was, "We were barely out of the gates of war and your Federation turned to genocide."
Yep.
That it just happens to coincide. I'm reading a book about the Operation Paperclip, where the U.S. brought a bunch of Nazi scientists over. And if you really find out about the history of those scientists, you question a lot of things. And this thing just hit me right in the gut. But the second one, she said a little later, she knows what the river knows. And holy cow, she's so ethereal yet creepy and just a tremendous portrayal of this villain by this actress. I just ultimate respect, just amazing.
I mean, to build on to those two quotes, the quote that she said that hit me was how remarkable it is for enlightened species to ignore each other's pain.
We took the same note.
Oh, did we?
Yes, yeah.
She said that, and I was like, "Ow!"
I was right.
Yeah. Oof.
So, if any episode relates to what you bring as mission log, right, which is morals, meanings, and messages, I'm like, those three quotes. The show has done its job. Now, how it's doing its job, I think, is more for today's audience, which demands the violence, demands this kind of thing. And they're walking that really careful line of being, making the show interesting for today's audience, those of the 24 generation of this ultra violence thing, yet still bringing in their messages. And it's taken a long time, but this is actually going to be a great 10-part miniseries. I think it's going to go down well in Star Trek history, but it's not for everybody, John. You know, it's not for the majority of people my age. But I'm going to leave you. I do want to say though, I think that something that I appreciated about that Picard, Beverly, Vadic conversation, when we cut away to Picard and Beverly talking about the moral implications of what they were doing. I'm glad that conversation got cut off.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't an end to that conversation. You needed the dramatic moment. You needed for the force fields to drop. You needed for Vadic to leave. Because I think they could make an argument to say, okay, now we have the information. What can we do with it? What do we do with it to be ethical, if there is a way to be ethical here? And I want to ask you very quickly, if you have it handy, what is the name of that book you're reading about Operation Paperclip?
I believe that's what it's called.
Oh, okay, perfect.
It's by a young lady who, from the Los Angeles Times, who wrote about Area 51 a few years ago. I will text it to you. Nice.
And then, yes, you had a parting thought.
Parting thought is, pressing question. Lore is Lore. And it's said lore. Why is Kore spelled said Core? And we'll leave you there. We'll just leave you there.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. I'll be up all night for that. Cheers.
Cheers.
Be good, Paul. All right. Welcoming to the show, Alan, who is not Paul, I don't think.
No, they're in two places. They can't be. Well, I see both of them.
It's just the computer, Holly. They could be in the same place. We don't. Yeah. What's up, Alan?
Am I?
Are you?
I'm afraid to say that I have joined the Pauls, or maybe the Paul Rates.
There we go. See, that's a new. It was so obvious, and we didn't get it before you brought it to us. The Paul race. Good job.
There we go. Yep.
Now they have to get T-shirts.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. I think I've spun off another thing, but I've got a couple of thoughts that I wanted to run by you guys. Some of them serious, some of them less serious. Let's start with the silly stuff.
Okay.
You guys are Angelinos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have what are your thoughts about the face? And do you recognize the performer?
Ooh.
What are my thoughts of the face?
Yes.
I don't think you're talking about Vadic's boss.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they're a changeling.
I'm digging that. I'm curious to know what the
Do you recognize
is.
the voice?
I do not recognize the voice, but you might. Would you be surprised to learn that it is former LA weatherman Garth Kemp?
Stop.
No, it's not.
What?
What?
That is who is credited in the episode.
Oh my God.
Get out of town. Oh my God.
Do you expect him to show up in episode 9 with a forecast?
That would be so awesome. That's what I want out of this whole series.
Is it the same Garth Kemp though?
I would assume so.
I mean, it would be really funny if it was like Johnny Mountain or something. Remember Johnny Mountain? I mean, all right, listen, like if he does voice work, that's great. Good for him.
Yeah.
Now I'm like furiously typing. Voiceover artist. Yeah, I don't know. LA Weatherman, Star Trek Picard. Oh my God. His Instagram says voice of quote unquote the face on hashtag Star Trek Picard, LA Weatherman.
Stop.
Hell yeah.
Stop. By the way, I love this in the chat. Brandon says today's forecast, doom.
That's amazing. Good for him.
Yeah,
Having like another aspect of a career. I love it.
To be
Incredible.
fair, I looked it up because I was like, is this somebody we should recognize? Should we expect them to show up at some point?
Right.
And the answer is no.
You know what's occurred to me, and it's like not possible, but I was like, what if it's Odo? And then I was like, no, but it's not a changeling, and like Renee's gone, and like it can't.
Yeah.
That, I mean, Weatherman. Okay.
Yeah. Or for a while I was thinking that it could be Loss's group, from that episode of DS9, but then you just get JG to do that voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like it has to be a new species that we were not aware of, and I'm very interested to learn what their motivation is, right? Because I mean, so many of these characters have like these motivations that are unfolding that you're like, oh, actually, they're kind of right.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Mind is blown by that. Thank you.
I did not mean to blow your mind with that.
You did. I'm afraid you did.
The other thing that's sort of I find interesting about the changelings is they seem to be sort of well, I don't know if it's inconsistent, but I noticed that Vanek specifically said no transporters when they went over to the Titan.
Yeah.
They took over the transporter chief on the Titan. There's been some back and forth. Is it just because a transporter is an awfully convenient way to kill people, or is it something about them that makes transporters a bad idea?
Well, I think because that's not the first time that's happened, right? Because the episode Ro comes over, very specifically, they're like, oh, they're coming over in a shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
There's a reason why.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So I don't think we know what it is yet, but I mean, maybe it has something to do with the half-life on the, what is it, Tholomian 847, which is the stabilizing agent.
Yep.
Perhaps. Don't know.
Maybe. By the way, Earl is on a hot streak here in the chat. And for anybody who's not in the Earl Green room, I feel bad for you. First of all, he said to Alan, "I surrender my dad joke trophy," and then he said, "Voiceover guy in need of
once
work
a week for years.
Yeah, will be menacing for food." And then here we go. The ultimate hashtag Pulaski was a changeling.
Oh no.
Yeah. Then Jason in the chat, in the public chat, pointing out that the changelings that killed Ro transported.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, that's the inconsistency that I'm like, well, those guys beamed over, but maybe there's something. There also seems to be some differences between the white masked bird people and Big Red. Big Red is much more durable for some reason.
Yeah.
So
I don't think we know the real, because somebody else said, Captain Mike, actually, they can probably be detected by transport. Because we've seen some of them transport. When Ro was coming over, and again, I had no idea that Michelle Forbes had joined the show. Not a clue. Yeah. They were like, oh, they insisted on coming over via a shuttlecraft, and I was like, is it Bones? Like, do they hate transporters? So, I think that, I mean, these are all loose ends, like these threads that I hope get wrapped up, because it's all stuff that we're noticing. And if by the end we don't know why they insisted on shuttlecraft versus, in most cases, versus transporter, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, it's definitely a curious thing that just keeps popping up, is transporters for some reason. So my serious thing, and you kind of touched on it a little bit right before I came on, is the moral dilemma that Beverly and Picard are having about the nature of the changeling disease and the steps that they could take to potentially detect them.
Yeah. And
how close do we want to get to genocide?
Yeah.
And
I mean, Beverly is the one that's saying everything, right? Like, I appreciated the line where she says, I feel like I'm losing my compass.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
God, yes.
And I'm curious to hear how you guys are feeling about this. I've seen some very negative reaction to this, as if it's some kind of like betrayal of her character arc from TNG. Personally, I think it's incredibly powerful and incredibly moving stuff, but I don't see it as a betrayal or as a change of who she is, because they're having that conversation. They're having that debate, and they don't know where they stand where they stand on this thing, but they're willing to talk about it. They're not just like gung ho. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this.
Right. I think it's sort of the same concept as like a woman questioning whether or not she's a good mother. Well, people who are terrible moms don't even have that question to themselves.
Well, and look, and she's had 20 or 20 plus years of now her relationship with Jack and being on the run for so long as well recently.
And she's also, quote unquote, lost a son, which is something that Vadic brings up in the form of Jack. Are you prepared to lose another son? I mean, Wesley's not dead, but he's gallivanting in the universe and she doesn't see him.
And apparently totally unaware of this other thing going on with his mom. I might have feelings about that. I think it's a little strange,
he's having fun with Issa Briones, and I can't blame him on some level. But come on, man.
Who wouldn't? Right, exactly. Alan, any other thoughts before we go to our last two calls?
Well, I did have one line that sort of stuck out to me when. Oh God, it's so close to my own name. Alondra says, has Lore always been this arch? First of all, yes. Second of all, that can apply to so many people this season. Everyone is very arch, Alondra. Come on.
Yes. Yeah. That is a great word. I love that it made it into the script. I'm glad you noticed that one too. Brilliant.
Yeah. So
good. Yeah.
On that note, have a good evening, and we'll see how all of this. See where we go from here.
Excellent, my friend. Take care. Have a great night.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right. Be good. All right. Welcoming now to the show, John Arminio.
In the blue room.
How you doing tonight, friend?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you. What is on your mind?
Yeah. So, I've all this, this Dr. Mengele stuff that apparently Starfleet has been performing on the changelings, that's sort of been my headcanon for Section 31 since they were introduced in DS9. Like, CIA is going to CIA. And that's been, part of my problem with Section 31 as a concept since Sloan had that monologue about how we're the reason why Starfleet still exists. We've been doing the dark, dirty deeds in the background for the past, 100 years. And so now we've retconned Starfleet to be committing war crimes constantly.
Yeah.
And so for me, seeing that explicitly told on screen is sort of like cathartic. It's like confronting sort of what we've done to Star Trek in the last 30 years and, what we've turned Starfleet into. And, I also find that particularly unsavory and a little disappointing, but at least we're sort of coming out and saying it, and hopefully redressing it. And, when there's this through line of, Picard saying, like, oh, it's worse than we thought, this infestation of the changelings. I don't know if it's intentional, but for me, there's already a deep-seated infestation within Starfleet of Section 31, of these un-Federation, un-Starfleet tactics and morality and motivations that have already degraded the vaunted Federation. And it's already, been crumbling long before the changelings have even began their sort of secret invasion.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to note from like a behind the scenes standpoint that like the Section 31 and the Dominion and all of that largely became a thing in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And Deep Space Nine was the first show in which Gene was not directly involved in any way, shape, or form because it premiered 2 years after he died. And we know that mostly, the infamous story of him not wanting there to be like clashing with people within the ship and like, so Ira Stephen Bear, like introducing all of this stuff that I would argue that that Gene maybe wouldn't be okay with would include Section 31.
Yeah, he would just absolutely despise Section 31.
But it's good storytelling too. Like that's the flip side of it, is that it creates friction that is interesting. And it still brings into question us as humans and whether or not we can be 100% good or if there are shades of gray.
See, if we can ever get to a point in this storytelling where everybody can admit, like, yeah, these things that Section 31 does, those are terrible, unethical, immoral things that absolutely do not align with our stated values. Therefore, we need to stop that. If we could ever have that conversation, I'd be very happy about it. But we seem to have just washed our hands of it and said, like, yeah, but you know what? We're all corrupt on some level, and we just need this corrupt institution right along with us, and we'll pretend like it's not there. That's not a good enough answer for me. So if we can actually get to a point in this series where we can say, wow, we really need to do some house cleaning. Because when we introduced Section 31 in DS9, I felt like, particularly with Sisko's outrage, we're recognizing that it's a problem, that a guy like Sloan is the problem, is the bad guy, and that is the kind of influence that needs to be eradicated so that we can live up to our principles, as opposed to a lot of this kind of shrug and go like, we can't always be good, so why not just completely invest in being horrible? you know?
There's a pretty good episode called First Duty, where they say
I may have heard of it.
Of every Starfleet officer is to the truth. And so if we have this whole department that we're not going to talk about, that is by its mere existence means we're going to lie to do everything we need to, that's anti-Starfleet and everything that Star Trek has sort of been about. And I understand, you can't keep telling the same stories for 60 years over and over again. But, like you said, John, we need to discuss all the lies and the war crimes we've been telling and doing if we're still going to pretend or hold those values near and dear to us.
And I've kind of looked at Star Trek's history, and every now and then an episode or a storyline like that will come along, and I go like, yeah, you know what? We sometimes need that reset. We need to be able to step outside of ourselves, size up the situation, and say, we really got off track here, and we need that reset to make sure that we are back on track. I think right where we are right now, where we've got 800 plus episodes of Star Trek and all these multiple series and movies and everything else, that it feels like it feels like it is the evergreen story as opposed
Corrupt
to
Admiral.
As opposed to that once in a while blip where you go like, ooh, wow, we really need to correct this problem. Like, we're also doing things out there, but we also need to turn the camera back on ourselves sometimes and make sure we're doing things right, and then carry on. But when it becomes the predominant story, I wonder if there are other stories then to be told.
Yeah. I mean, if my greatest dream would be if we could get like a Star Trek 6 for Section 31. It's like the way Star Trek 6 looked back and said, we really otherized the Klingons in a pretty uncomfortable and bad way. Let's try and correct that. If we could get a story where we look back at Section 31 and their legacy within the Federation, that would be great.
I agree. All right, my friend, thank you for calling in tonight. We got room for one more caller tonight. We'll see you soon, I hope. Take care, John. And closing out the show tonight, we welcome Tim. Tim is climbing a mountain. Why is Tim climbing a mountain?
That's a plateau. That feels
plateau.
Mesa?
It's Yosemite. If you look.
Oh, is it?
Right there. Yeah, right there.
There we go.
There he is. Captain JTK.
He's right there.
Freshly resurrected. He only suffered severe injuries on Viridian 3.
That was it. Not enough to keep him off that mountain.
Yeah,
That's
don't
right.
climb a rock. I don't.
And what's on your mind tonight?
Oh boy. I have the only storyline that isn't working for me this season. I have to go back to the Jack Crusher, Red Door, Red Vines mystery. It's dragging. It's too much time devoted to too little development. Basically, until this episode, all we got out of this was a little bit of space karate. But the reality is, Jack Crusher is interesting enough as the child of Jean-Luc and Beverly. The actor has terrific rapport with everyone he has a scene with. This concept of the dark vision feels like the one thing left over from season 1 and season 2 when we were striving for prestige TV, and we have to have a dark, horrific, violent, shocking storyline that perhaps tricks the audience in some way. And season 3 has largely avoided that. I mean, tonally, it's just completely different. This just doesn't feel like it feels like something that, and obviously we don't know how it resolves yet. Maybe it will resolve spectacularly, but it just feels like it's too much time devoted for something that really hasn't paid off much at all at this point.
I agree with you, and agreeing with you in the chat actually is Alan saying, I was just telling Earl, this is about as far as I'm willing to go with the Jack Crusher mystery. Time to start landing that plane.
Yeah, because he keeps developing new weird powers, and like every time I'm like, oh, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. Like there's a new and I'm like, can we just get to the point?
Yeah. I don't know, and maybe it is part of that problem with, okay, we have to fill 10 episodes, so some things will be stretched out a little bit. I felt like even this episode, 7 was good. I mean, episode 7 of 9 is always good. She's always great. But this particular episode, Dominion, it was fine. There were some good, strong, dramatic moments.
Shaw,
oh my God, Shaw.
I have to mention him before we go off the air because he doesn't have very much screen time in this. But Todd, the silent tears when he's laying on the floor and Vatic is taking over. I was like, I had a live reaction and I sent it to Todd because I was like, how are you doing this?
Nice. But I think that there are moments in this that could have been sort of moved into other, like if you had to lose an episode, you could take scenes from this episode and just fit them in, and I think not spend as much time with the question about the Red Door, the Red Vines, not to be confused with Red Vines, which are delicious if you like that kind of thing. But you could do that in other ways instead of eating up a whole episode with
much red matter, red angel, a lot of red in Star Trek. Red Lady.
It's just the best scenes with him are just him sitting at a bar having a conversation with someone, and that's all it needs to be. It doesn't have to be any more complex than that. I also terrifically moved by the Geordi Data scene, and we don't get enough LeVar Burton acting anymore. We forget how good he is, and it strikes me as astonishing in retrospect, 35, 37 years ago, whatever it was, that someone said, let's take the actor with the most expressive eyes in human history and cover them for 7 years.
With a hair clip.
With a hair clip,
yeah.
How insane and brilliant is that? Because he acted right through that thing. Just the best. I wanted to call in last week, and I know we're short on time, but I was sick as a targ last week.
Oh, yeah, nobody likes that.
That's a reference, by the way. Playing on dog.
They're pigs.
Are they pigs?
Well, in the show, they're pigs.
Pig dogs? I thought
they're pig dogs.
They're pig dogs. Or dog pigs, one or the other.
Sure are tasty.
I think one of the ones that was used on on TNG, her name is like Lola or Lulu or something like that. Anyways,
that's awesome.
They're pigs. Keep going.
Fair enough. There was a lot of debate last week about the nostalgia fest of the Bounty episode, and it seemed like most people were really into it, but that maybe it didn't have a lasting impact and maybe it was a little too much. I wanted to advocate for the fan who loved every second of it and supports it fully. To me, not every second of a television show has to drive the storyline forward, has to offer deep character work. Let's take 5 minutes and celebrate this thing we love in a way that only Star Trek can. There is no other show, maybe Doctor Who, that could take 5 minutes and have this level of nostalgia to just sit back and say, we, the creators of the show, love it the same way that you, the viewers of the show, do. And so I really appreciated it. It gave me confidence that the last 3 episodes are going to be brought home. And I really loved it. And every time it comes up on social media and I see a clip of Jerry Ryan and Jack Crusher looking at the Voyager or the Enterprise A, I just sit and watch it. I could have 5 minutes of that every episode. So there are those of us out there who loved it unabashedly and support it happening again and again and again.
I mean, they didn't have a lot of it in this episode, so I feel like it's evening out. And I didn't hate it. I just felt like it was a lot.
Or if you're bold enough, you take 9 minutes out of a feature film and you just fly around the Enterprise. You could do that too. I mean, I think we really get to a point of splitting hairs because everybody's threshold for not referencing salamander babies, everybody's threshold for where they draw the line with nostalgia versus, just an in-universe reference that connects them to the universe. It's going to be different things. As we say, your mileage may vary. And it's funny. I listened to most of that show while you guys were live, but I didn't hear all of it. And then I talked to Norman the next day, and I was like, what if they just split the episode? And you had the museum stuff in one episode, you had the Daystrom stuff in another episode. And he said, "I said that on the show." Yeah, great minds. I get it. So I think there's a way to handle it. I also think that some shows like Lower Decks, that's baked into the cake. And for me, it's not necessarily about the number of references. It's about the pace and just how you land the joke. But I fully expect it there. So when I got an episode last week, it was like the double dose. I was a little shell-shocked from it, but I 100% respect and appreciate where you're coming from with that, and I'm glad that it hit those buttons for you. That sounds kind of magical.
Magical indeed.
Excellent.
The Targ's name was Emmy Lou, and she was a Russian wild boar.
Emmy Lou, the Targ.
And Where No Man Has Gone Before.
Oh my God, I love it. All right,
amazing.
Tim, please call us back sometime. Talk to you then, okay?
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers. And with that, Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log Live and Mission Log is by the incandescent Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcast. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Special thanks to Holly, fantastic guest host here on Mission Log Live. Thanks to everyone who joined us live or later. Next week, you'll be back for Star Trek Picard Episode 8 with Holly and Norman. We will see you then.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.